So the Nike Mercurial has given us a lot of memorable boots, some good, some kind of bad. But what are actually the most important Mercurial boots for the new Mercurial that we've just seen launch? Well, today I'm here at the Nike World headquarters with Emily, and you're gonna take us through what you think are the most important pieces of innovation on a Mercurial, basically ever. The best way to start is, we couldn't start anywhere else, could we?
The first speed boot in the industry.
First speed boot in the industry. And just, innovative and groundbreaking in so many ways. Obviously, the first Mercurial R9. Talk to me. What does this mean to Nike?
Sure. I mean, you think about Nike's all about innovating for athletes. Sure. Even before '98, you go back a few years, we sign a young Ronaldo, right? And you look at how he plays and you're like, it's speed, right? He gets on the pitch and he just plays at another level. And forever Mercurial's been about speed. So the team got after it and said, hey, how would we design a football boot and think about it in a totally new way? This is almost like the track spike of football, right? The first speed boot ever in the industry. And not just from a performance perspective around speed, but if you think about how all the other football boots at the time looked, you look at the wall and it's a lot of black boots made of kangaroo leather or cow leather. You bring in the synthetic leather, and the way you're able to turn on color just takes our athletes to the next level on the pitch.
But this was, groundbreaking in many ways. Obviously, we also had the Match Mercurial 2 years after, but the next really big thing was obviously the Mercurial Vapor 1. And this is, why are you doing this to me? This is obviously iconic, legendary. The chrome limes that Ronaldo wore in the semifinals and the final of the World Cup. But again, where the first Mercurial R9 was groundbreaking. This just took things to a whole nother level, right?
Exactly. I think obviously you even mentioned it, like synthetic leather, upper, everything. But this, you look at it and you go like, this is the modern game, right? Like, I think you could get in these today and people would look at you and go like, that chrome, it just jumps off the pitch. So at the time, obviously, we were talking about the performance innovations like the new last, and even how high the heel was made it feel like more and more of a track spike and speed driven.
Which was not very high.
Which was not very high and may, again, engage with the ankle in different ways than our current innovations.
Sure.
But
also engaged with the ankle in the sense that it gave hella blisters. But that was, that was a sacrifice you had to make, but what you got out of it was just next level. Yeah. So obviously, the Vapor 2s were kind of like the Vapor 1s, few modifications. Yep. Vapor 3s were also really good, introduced that carbon piece in the heel.
Obviously, these kind of started that whole path, even where Vapor 2 and 3 ended up.
And I think for me, the Vapor 3 was my favorite Vapor for a long, long time. But I think like a more important innovation came the year after, or 2 years after, obviously, with the Mercurial 4 SL and obviously the carbon SLs, the Mercurial SLs.
Yeah. You can't see these without picking them up and going carbon fiber,
yeah.
right? The first time the industry's seen carbon fiber, full carbon plate, these really set the stage for how would we innovate in that underfoot, even more than just what the traction or studs themselves do.
And then, of course, there is the Mercurial SL, where Mark Parker just came in, new CEO. He told the football team, you know what, you make the most innovative football boot you can. There's no budget, just go and do it.
Yeah.
So obviously, full carbon fiber tooling, same as on this one, but then also full carbon fiber upper. Ridiculous.
Yeah, it was the first concept car ever, you could argue, in football, right? Like getting charged with that idea. Every sport at Nike trying to innovate, do something, break things, try new things. Like that Carbon SL is still one of those boots. We only made 2,008 of them, right? Like it was that concept car that motivated ideas into the future.
The lace cover. Fun back in the day. I actually ended up cutting mine off because it was, was giving me such bad blisters, right? And you kept it for a couple of years and then scrapped it. But let's say that the big innovation on this one was the carbon fiber tool. Yeah. And then a year after, we move on to the Superfly 1. Epic name. Still carbon fiber tooling, little cutouts in the studs, wicked, but the big piece was obviously Flywire.
Yeah, and at that time, Flywire, this is the first time we introduced it in Nike football. And you think of those elements that make a player fast, right? You have to have that lockdown where those first few steps, they're able to get right off the pitch really quickly. This Flywire, just intuitively and like performance-wise, was able to do that for our athletes. You already mentioned it, but some of these cutouts in the tooling itself, right? Like just giving that essence of lightness if you look at the stud pattern and how it came to life. So
always filled up with mud, but hey.
It's true.
Danish pitches, that's what it is. Obviously, we also had the legendary Superfly 2, which is, Yeah, let's not talk about it, actually. Let's move over here then, instead,
Yes.
to 2014. One of the most mind-blowing moments, for me at least, with the launch of, obviously, the Magista, and a little while after, the Superfly 4. That was wild. You know, what it did, introducing, obviously, the high silhouette, dynamic fit collar, Flyknit, and Brio cables that basically did what Flywire did, but in a way that was not as uncomfortable as Flywire, because it was a bit stiff. This must be one of the, at least for me, one of the most defining, one of the most groundbreaking tentpole moments for football boots.
For sure. You think about Magista, right? Like Magista was that first Flyknit boot. But of course, Mercurial is the biggest and the boldest football boot we offer at Nike Football. And just even the silhouette today, like you think about how a foot is shaped and you look at the heel here, it's like we were able to bring that dynamic fit collar to Superfly in a way that's pretty meaningful today in the game and amongst the industry, and do it in a way that brings that identity of like performance in that heel. And this was a moment in time when the Superfly 4 and then of course the Vapor 10 offered a different experiences of speed, right, with those uppers.
Vapor 10s were also great. That Tahitian upper, brilliant, you know, the whole feel of the boot. One of the most, for me at least, one of the most underrated Vapors. Doesn't get as much love as the Vapor 11s maybe, which we're gonna talk about now. I'm gonna put it out there. The Vapor 11s, and might also be the Vapor 13s, are probably my favorite Mercs ever. I love everything about this boot. Obviously, it was, it kind of stood in the shadow a little bit of the Superfly 5. That also came with the Brio cables, and those ribs, obviously, kind of continued where the Superfly 4 left off. But for me, this is the big piece. You know, it really goes back to the feeling of the first Mercurial. That super anatomical fit, obviously anatomical tooling, the lightweight, super thin upper, good texture on the ball, did everything it had to. Fantastic.
And I think you think about the DNA of Mercurial, right? And you see the synergy of plate. And you feel it, right? And it's still one of the lightest Mercurials we made. I think it really holds up, like for the modern game. 165, 166. And like you said, that anatomical last, just efficiency in those moments on the pitch. And little things like it being a one piece, right? Like how that locked you in from a fit perspective. And then of course, the traction itself. Like you think about the room we're in, the chevron identity, like this represented one of those moments where like, it's all about those first few steps, aggressive chevron, forward-facing studs and tooling.
And for me, to this day, one of the most aggressive Mercurial plates we've had. Vapor 13 is also one of my most favorite Mercurials out there. I can still whip it out today and think that's one of the best Mercs I've ever worn. Because you get the traction, you get that very, very comfortable fit, you get the lockdown from the high tenacity ons. I shouldn't call it a perfect boot, but that's damn close.
It's hard to get perfect. Right?
I know.
This, like you mentioned, I think we're gonna, we talked about when Flyknit was introduced with the Superfly 4. This represents that journey of exploring and driving new upper innovation. So knit, like you mentioned, high tenacity yarns. What we needed, Brio cables or Flywire for in the past, this was an integrated package. You could slip this on and just get out there and play.
Then we also have the Vapor 15s. The Vapor 14s were also great. Obviously you had the Vaporposit upper, but I think this one just took it to the next level. Obviously Vaporposit Plus, but also with the Zoom Air in the tooling. Talk to me about that. Because it feels like it took a slightly different direction to the Mercurials we've seen in the past.
This, at the time, was that first Air Zoom Strobel designed specifically for football. We brought in some of the TriStar studs, more about multi-directional traction.
And maybe not the most Mercurial thing ever if you look back, but there's a solution to that.
There is a solution as we get to the Vapor 16 and think about this idea of how can we unlock more traction, more propulsion, more speed. That is what the Vapor 16 is designed for, and we'll talk more about it, but that's how the airbag is built, that's how the traction pattern is built, and the little details of obsessing those outsole compounds to really get the most out of that Air Zoom bag. If you take a look at them side by side like we're doing now,
it just looks faster.
It looks faster, and I'll highlight 3 quick things. The fins, the actual traction pattern itself, and then, of course, even just the forefoot flex and compounds and how we're able to unlock that is a pretty meaningful thing.
This one, I mean, it was definitely a unique feeling, but I sometimes felt it was more like a don't get me wrong, but a comfort element. It felt nice and unique and, you know, a little bit squishy and bouncy, but not in like super hardcore propulsion.
This should feel like those first few steps.
Okay.
Like if the ball is loose over there, whether you're off the ball, you're getting faster to the ball or faster with the ball. And that's where some of even the upper innovation comes in.
It's not the first time you're using it as Nike Football, but the first time on a Mercurial, and I'm very excited for this grip knit.
Yep. Nike grip knit in a Mercurial right way.
Yeah.
As we looked at the Mercurial, we wanted to unlock Nike grip knit in a way that provides a barefoot-like boot-to-ball sensation. So thinner, but then also that right element of grippiness when moving with the ball at high speeds.
Absolutely. So, like basically, a boot silo packed with innovation. We could have talked about more boots, to be fair. Vapor 8s are also great football boots. I love those personally, and it's fun going through all like the tentpole moments, of which Mercurials has had a lot of like the biggest innovation moments in football. But guys, I'm really curious as to what your most important Mercurials are. Let us know in the comment section right down below. Of course, if you want to get the brand new Vapor 16 on your feet, you can buy from Unisport in the link right over there. Of course, also don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notifications on. And if you want to see my review of the Mercurial, you can click the link right down there. With those words, Emily, thanks for joining us. We'll be signing off. Cheerio.